have to fight 20-year-olds after this.
You have to fight?
Yeah, I teach judo.
Yeah.
And all the dudes are like 20, so I can't be drinking whiskey and then have to fight them.
Is that why you shaved?
Yeah.
You teach 20-year-olds judo?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It's,
how did you get into judo?
Yeah.
And what's the difference between that discipline and others?
So judo is a grappling sport. So it's throwing, choking, pinning, and locks. So it's like
so it's not like offensive.
Oh, it is.
Oh, okay.
It is. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And defensive. So it's not, but there's no striking. So there's no punching and kicking. So it's considered a grappling art.
And where did that come from?
I did Jiu Jitsu when I was in college for 2 years. Then my gym closed and they had a judo class at the U. And it was better. So I just kept going.
But what point in your life were you like, I need to learn how to...
I always did martial arts since high school. Yeah. I've been doing martial arts since I was like 15, 16 years old.
What's your rank?
Black belt.
Oh, so, all right. So good thing I didn't start shit when he walked in.
Yeah.
Hey, nice to meet you. And he does I just flip over on the hood of a car.
Have you ever had to use your ninja skills?
Well, we fight every single day.
No, but in like real life.
Like in an alley?
Yeah, or at a bar, or
like in college,
or at Walmart.
Are you a nighttime vigilante
in high school?
In high school, yeah. This stuff.
Tell us the story.
Some guy stuck his hands down my ex-girlfriend's pants.
Jesus!
Wow.
And I flipped him.
I think that's grounds.
Yeah,
we're okay there.
Sober?
No, that's
we were in high school. Yeah,
wait, what?
Sober? Yeah, we were in high school. Yeah. So I flipped him.
Like in the classroom, he did this.
He did it in school, and I fought him in the parking lot after.
Wow.
Or no, in our community afterwards. But the moves that you learn are like, they happen very quickly, so it's not climactic, really.
Right. It's just more like, all right, calm down.
It's not like we're like battling. It's just like you grab some guy and flip him. He just is like, oh fuck, I just got flipped.
Would this be a great if there were cell phones back then? Would this have been a great brawl?
Million
Judo is a very dramatic looking sport. Like it looks impressive.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
It's one of the only. I think it's the only martial art in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't know if they brought karate back.
I think they brought karate back.
They did.
Did they?
They did?
Well,
Yeah.
they were in Japan, so that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why do people like Joe Rogan like jiu-jitsu compared to like what's the differences?
You can get better at jiu-jitsu faster.
It's like the difference between skiing and snowboarding. Skiing is relatively easy to learn, very difficult to master. Snowboarding is very difficult to learn the first couple of times, but once you become competent at it, you can become very good very quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you have if you take like 3 months of jiu-jitsu, you start getting really good at jiu-jitsu. You probably have to be in judo for about 2 years before you're like, I think I'm getting slightly better.
That's crazy.
Did you have a distinct advantage over everybody else though with your background in jiu-jitsu?
Only with the grappling.
Really?
Yeah, because
like the whole. But
the
judo's
grappling on the
feet.
ground.
Oh, it's on the ground as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a whole half of it.
Judo is.
Yeah. Yeah. So there I did okay because of the jiu-jitsu, but the standing stuff, the throwing, that is complicated. That is complicated.
Yeah.
It's totally counterintuitive.
Yeah. I've never the only fight I've ever been in was when I turned around, somebody hit me in the face. So I really, there wasn't much I could do.
If I had to pick one person at this table who has never been in a fight, you would be number one on my list of picks.
You think so?
You want to see the difference?
100%.
Between judo and jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Can we pull it up?
Yeah.
On our
airplay it?
Airdrop?
I don't know. If I send this to you on
Facebook Messenger,
would that
potentially
would that work?
Yeah. Dan, why don't you sign into your Buca de Face over there, and we can find.
How about this Olympic judo?
Oh, best judo.
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
I just sent you karate versus judo, so you can see an actual fight.
I didn't realize. I mean, I've seen a little bit of judo, but I didn't realize that half of it was on. Is it intentionally half of it on the ground, or because I thought it was?
I mean, it seems like always trying to get your opponent down.
Hit the ground, it's over.
It's a point system.
Right.
If you throw somebody on their back, it is a full point. You immediately win. So there's a high reward, obviously, for being able to do that.
There's submissions.
Submissions, making the guy tap or girl tap, is another win, right? So there's an opportunity there. Choking them, knocking them out, is another way to win.
But you cannot strike.
You cannot strike, and then pinning them for 20 seconds is the final way you can win.
For 20 seconds?
Yeah, they have to be immobilized.
What's all this WWE 3-second shit? 20 seconds.
Well, think about it. If you pin a dude for 20 seconds, you won. Yeah, there's no question.
Did you just ask what's the deal with this WWE?
Yeah,
It kind of looked.
They're lying to me. What's that, Aja?
What?
I thought you said a thing.
No, I didn't say anything.
That guy looks so...
And it's all determined by weight class.
It's all weight class and rank, but these guys are all black.
Wait, so you do this every weekend?
Every Friday, Saturday. I have
Don't you own like a studio?
I run a school. It's like 2 blocks from here.
Really?
What are some of these techniques that they're using here with these takedowns that were?
They're all different.
Okay.
That was like a counter.
Or are we so stupid that they all look the same?
They look
yeah.
the same.
So that's like Tayatoshi.
That's like my daughter's name.
Really?
Your daughter's name's Tayatoshi?
No, it's Torshi.
Oh.
This is a pin, so he's pinning him. He's immobilized. This man can't get he broke the pin, right? And then there's half points. So if you pin the guy for 10 seconds, you get a half point. If you pin him for another 10, you win because you got 2 half points. Whoa. That's a full point.
Holy
Square
shit.
on her back, right?
She just flipped that girl.
It's called Ippon Seinage. Boom.
That's like a step up move.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So how did you go from this to finance?
Well, this came before finance.
Oh, so this is even more in your blood.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I was a teenager when I started doing martial arts, and then in college I started doing judo.
No, let's not plug NBC.
I might get in trouble.
Yeah, I have to now blur that out.
Let me ask you a question. How does that translate? Like
in business?
No, but how does that translate into like a real world out of the dojo? Is that what you call?
Yeah.
But
God,
out
we're
on
such
the streets.
simpletons.
I mean, so you're in there. You have a set of rules. You have certain things you're allowed to do, not do. There's a referee. Taking that discipline that you've learned over the years, taking that into outside, confrontation happens. How much would you in a fight stick to judo principles versus just raw? We're going after it.
Just go street fight.
It's a great question. So there, any martial artist that actually knows and respects combat sports will tell you that you get humbled by studying martial arts because there's enough circumstances where you're a black belt in judo and then just a huge dude comes in and he beats the shit out of you because he's a huge dude.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, so you never want to go into it being like, well, because I know all of these things, I'll be able to beat the shit out of it.
It doesn't mean you're invulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's sometimes people that are stronger than you. Sometimes people that'll catch you. There's sometimes people that, also know martial arts or maybe they're more skilled. But if anything, at the very least, you will have significantly more skill, right? Now, they might be stronger than you and still win, or you might be like vulnerable or scared for a moment and they just deck you. But I would say at the very least, if you can survive the initial onslaught, you have this buffet of moves that you now have available and that you've trained for years at your disposal. And with judo, a lot of the moves are not, they're counterintuitive. Like you wouldn't think to turn backwards and expose your back in a fight. Therefore, your opponent is not likely to know that you might do that either. If you fight a judo guy, they might know because they know the same moves. But if there's some dude at a bar and suddenly you're just like wrapping your arm around his hip and he loading him on your like shoulder, he's like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you just decked them right onto the concrete.
So, who would win, a judo master or a kung fu master?
Judo. Well,
Yeah.
put up the video. I just
I sent it to you, Dan,
On what?
on the Facebook, on the Book of Face.
Okay.
All right, while he's pulling that up, I think what I was trying to get at is like, does that inform your life in like everyday
I would say so.
behavior?
I would say so.
It made you more disciplined.
Makes you more disciplined. There's certain principles of judo that I feel like kind of get wired into you after a while, like mutual welfare and benefit. Like you never want to do something to your opponent in judo that is only going to benefit you, but not also benefit them. Like you want to just break somebody's arm to see if you can break their arm, and now not able to do judo for 6 months because you hurt them. Right. So in a business perspective, you know, generally speaking, you'd want to carry yourself in a similar way. But the big thing I would say is a principle called maximum efficiency with minimal effort. That is one of the principles of judo.
Is that kind of like work smarter, not harder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maximum. So if you are doing good judo, there's a concept called empty gi. Gi is the uniform that we wear. So if you're doing it right, and I've only maybe experienced this twice in my entire, 11 years now of training, where you just catch the person perfectly. And you're like, you throw them, but you don't realize that you threw them because they felt so light that it just means that you timed it flawlessly.
Yeah, it was like a perfect ballet.
Perfect ballet. So I've thrown guys that are like 230, 240 pounds, and they're like, oh, good throw. I'm like, I threw you? And it's just because it just lined up perfectly because it's maximum efficiency with the minimum amount of effort. So you apply that to business. It's like, if I could do something faster with less effort, more efficiently, why would I do anything other than that? If there's a shorter way to do it with the same result, why do something that complicates it?
It seems almost counterintuitive.
Yes,
for what you're told about, like, you got to work hard and suffer or else you'll never survive.
Well, I mean, for me as a business owner, the one thing that we look for before all else is work ethic. It's the one thing you cannot teach. If somebody has work ethic, that's the fundamental, that's the building block that you start with. Now you're teaching people how to work smart. Now you're teaching people how to do things well. You're teaching people skills. I don't remember who it was. I don't know if it was like a Bill Gates, Steve Jobs kind of guy that said, whenever you have a task that seems impossible, give the job to the laziest person that you have because they'll figure out an easy way to get it done.
Amen.
Now, Brian, I listened to your last podcast with Al Patel. And this kind of, I think, lends to that idea where he was talking about the people he was hiring. And, you know, he worked 7 days a week, nonstop, right? But when he was looking for people to hire, he was looking for people that wanted to work.
Right.
And, you know.
It's true. I mean, you got to work, but you also have to do the right kind of work, right? Like, I feel like just being a hard worker, like I can't remember who it was. It was some podcast that I was listening to. If all success was based solely off of hard work, then like construction workers and waitresses would be the wealthiest people. Yeah. Because who can ever deny that they work significantly harder than anybody that has a desk job? So it's not only hard work. Hard work is like diligence, I guess. But this, I can't remember who it was. It was like one of those dudes that like you follow his stuff, then he tries to get you to join like a pyramid scheme type. You know what
Alex Jones. All right.
So, you know, like I didn't want to get too into it, but the dude was bringing up good points. And he goes, the thing that you want to find is like prudence. And he defined prudence as orienting yourself correctly for the task at hand. And the example he said was like, basically anybody could be a millionaire. Like if you save like a little bit of money in an interest-bearing account over like 60-something years, mathematically speaking, you could be a millionaire. It just, it works. Like the math works out almost every single time, right? But if you can reorient it and find ways to get there faster through certain tasks, that is prudence, right? So you wouldn't look at the person that took 60 years to become a millionaire as like, hey, great job, buddy. You really worked hard. That's what it's all about. No, he could have like maybe made a few adjustments and got there in like a few years rather than having to wait 60, right? So for me, I'm like maximum efficiency with minimal effort. The issue is, I think culturally.
Why does that seem like a difficult concept to grasp for a swath of people?
Because like there's an emphasis put on like grit, right? Which is good, but it's one attribute, I would say.
Yeah, it's not the only.
It's not the only attribute. So like if you could be gritty as hell and have prudence, then you're like
you're destined
insane
for success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first started my career, like right out of college, first job, just got married. I had a boss who came to me and I was starting to make a few mistakes. I was working incredibly hard, but I was making mistakes. And he said, I don't want you to give me 90% and I don't want you to give me 110%.
Just give me 100.
Just give me 100. Because at 90, you're cutting me short. At 110, you're making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Stick to 100.
Yeah.
And it was fundamental for me. Like having, you know, I'm sure you've had it along the way, those teachers. I always say, like, the best thing a kid could ever have as far as their career, looking at the long term, is not great grades. It is being a part of a sports team or being involved in theater in high school. That's it. You learn how to take coaching, you know how to be a good teammate, and you know how to work hard under adversity.
And constructive criticism isn't something that you're going to take personally.
Great point.
You have to learn how to take criticism.
Right.
Because if you don't know how to take criticism, you're a failure right out the gate, without a doubt. You have to be able to be course corrected. Because if you don't, you will never learn how to grow. I say it all the time. Like, for me, I love when I am wrong. Because when I'm wrong, it's an opportunity to get better, to grow, and to move in the right direction.
Correct.
So, I mean, for me, and that's just, I've learned to love it because of my personality. I'm often wrong. I'm kind of a, you know, shoot first, ask questions later kind of a guy. So when I'm course corrected, for me, that fulfills me more than just about anything.
So there's a lot. So everyone in here is a business owner except for Dan, because he's a loser.
He's a great guy.
We all serve our purpose.
So
you're welcome for listening to your podcast.
So there's a different. I think there's a different point of view here, and I think we all have different disciplines in how we do our things. I kind of do my stuff, you know, kind of how Micah does his life, where it's like shoot, ready, aim, which might make me real stupid. I'm finding out.
That's how I live my life. That used to be how I live my life. How I run my business is very different than my personal life. Very different.
Yeah, well, I can't separate both because I'm an idiot. But that being said, I mean, I am now currently trying to pay attention to like economies and what inflation means and what too much spending means. And I was kind of hoping that you could kind of point me in a direction as an idiot. What is going on right now? Or do we look at the past to predict the future? You know, is it the Matrix? This has happened before, it will happen again? Or is this unique?
Well, which aspect?
I'll
touch on it all.
Inflation, unemployment, spending. And how and just from numbers,
market.
The housing market too. What is like
everything seems a little unstable.
In the if-then game, like are we at a place? How did we get here? And then what is scenario A, B, C, or is there only A?
Got it. Okay. So I would say I was giving this analogy frequently with the people that I work with at my practice. And if you think of an economy or even a nation, which obviously a nation is fueled by its economy, as a boat, okay? And it's just sailing on the open sea. And yes, there's waves sometimes, and it's going up and down, and little shit happens. And occasionally there's big waves because there's a storm. And that's the United States, okay? Ebbing and flowing. COVID is like a torpedo, just hit that damn boat and blew a hole in the side.
And it's taking on water.
Okay? From an economic perspective, but as we know, it's not just an economic issue. There's all these different layers of issues that COVID brought about. Health-wise.
Yeah, social issues.
Social issues, on and on. Political issues. So from an economic perspective, the boat started taking on water, and people had to come to decisions in order to patch that hole that in retrospect might not have been perfect, but I view it as at least the damn boat is still afloat. Okay?
Okay.
We are now in a position where we have to clean up, pretend that we were patching up the hole with like merino wool sweaters, right?
Okay.
And now
that's your territory, man. That's your territory. You know sweaters.
So, it's a beautiful Italian blend.
It's a beautiful Italian blend, right? And now the boat's afloat, but now we're like, God damn it, there's like barnacles growing on these expensive Italian merino wool sweaters. Was there a better way? Did you know that upstairs there was, patch that we could have used?
Yeah. Walmart bags.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's in retrospect, right? Because it was a state of emergency, state of panic. This inflation issue, I view as the barnacles growing on the merino wool sweaters. So yes, it is one of the bad side effects of the response to COVID from an economic perspective, because simply they had to print money so people could eat, so people, so we didn't fall into a depression, essentially. But now people are sitting on crazy money. There's extended unemployment where people are no longer incentivized to work because they're making more from unemployment than they are from working, their previous job. So all that is bad, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, well,
we're here.
We did what we had to
effect.
do. So the current inflation that we're dealing with is more of a result of the rashness of the decisions that we had to come to. But I believe, and there's data that would suggest that it's going to subdue once people begin spending the money that, once they burn through the money they had and demand starts to subside, and then supply begins to increase once people actually are working and making shit again. And then it'll begin to level out. We'll probably have a little bit of an inflationary effect on the economy, but I don't think it's going to be rampant inflation for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I heard too, that it's going to be in line with, general inflation. And like you said, I think consumer spending is already going up. So people are spending. So which in a way is good for the economy, right? Like if people were taking the money and not spending and not doing anything, then I think, whatever they did was wrong. But people are starting to spend, right? I think even savings went down, right? Like in pre-COVID, savings was up. People were saving, but now
people were making a good amount of money compared to
so now
years
people are not saving, so they're spending, which is a good thing.
Or the savings go down because people needed to use it to survive.
Part of that, I'm sure. Yeah,
I'm sure that's a variable or a factor at least.
It is, but also like people. The economy works, and you could correct me, but the economy works when people are spending, right?
Yeah.
Like we measure GDP based on the value of the market, right? So like, what people are spending. So if no one is spending, then it's nothing.
right.
So yeah, I mean, it's good that you have people saving, but it's always good to have people spending. It's like catch-22.
I think, looking at inflation, and I've said this months and months ago before the inflation figures came out, normal cost of living adjustments, 1% to 3%, inflation 1% to 3%. And I kept saying to people, I was like, with this many people not working, don't be surprised when a gallon of milk costs you $6. And I was saying the next 2 years, we're going to go up 8% total, 4 and 4. And what did we go up? 4.2 this year?
I'm not sure.
It was 4. It was
the general inflation rate
this year, and it's going to be probably the same next year. Now we're talking 8% over 2 years. Okay, you could be lucky if you're in a good investment, package that you would get something like that on your money. But yeah, now we're spending 8% more than we did 2 years ago, which is crazy.
Okay, so I'm back to me being an idiot, right? And you said before that we just printed money. How does that work? How do you just thin air money?
I had that conversation last year with a really smart guy in a meeting, and we talked about this idea of we're just going to print money. And I'm like, that doesn't work. He goes, yeah, it does. That's just what we do. We just make money.
Yeah.
So hypothetically,
where does it come from? Where does it go? How do we pay it down?
So
you can move that a little bit more in front of you if you want to.
Go down
instead of moving your body, you can just move that.
Are you going to go down the Fed rabbit hole, like the Federal Reserve versus the U.S. government?
All right. I'll get my moccasins. Let's go.
Deep state thing.
I need some tinfoil.
Yeah.
So basically, like, when all this stuff started happening, I had the same questions because I'm like, where did like $4 trillion come from? Is this going to be okay?
They found it in an account in Scranton.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's happened before. It's happened before.
It's in somebody's like ceiling tiles. I think.
Couple 2 tree.
No, remember when the tax office was like, "Oh, we forgot this millions of dollars was
like
here."
3 or 6 million.
$6 million bucks. Hey. Yeah. Okay, so thin air.
Yeah. So the United States is now basically living in an experiment of sorts from an economic perspective. Okay.
So you mean this year or the past
since
decades?
Since about 2008, since the
housing crisis.
Okay. So when the housing crisis occurred in 2008, the Obama administration was basically open to suggestions from a variety of different economic theorists, because really we hadn't seen a crisis quite to that degree, maybe since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Great Depression took what, about 11 years for
at least to recover. Yeah.
Like 1930 something, right?
Yeah.
30, 40.
And
it took a world war.
It took
Right.
It took World War manufacturing to kind of really get us back.
And during that time, it was going according to the principles of basically a free market economy, because who was it? Herbert Hoover around that time?
Hoovervilles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was just like, look, he was probably the last free market president that we had until Roosevelt in the New Deal era. And during that time, like, we've all studied history. The Great Depression wasn't like normal. Like, there was children dying of starvation in the United States of America. There was a dust bowl going on. We read The Grapes of Wrath, ladies breastfeeding people just so they can eat. And it's just like, whoa, like, this is not cute. This is an atrocity happening on our own soil that's entirely economic in nature, right? So basically since then, the book has been open of sorts on like, hey, are there better or different ways that we can run an economy that perhaps we haven't thought of yet? And right now, really since about 2008, we are kind of experimenting with the type of, more specifically, a monetary theory called modern monetary theory, or MMT, they call it. Has anybody heard of this?
Nope.
No.
All right. So modern monetary theory.
Wait, hold on. We all just fucking Scooby-Doo classroomed that moment.
But are we
Preach to us,
Are we
teacher.
going to owe him money at the end of this?
So modern monetary theory, which I'm not an expert in by any means, but like, if you basically study the policy response that we did during COVID in a big way, and 2008 in a smaller way, it was all based off of principles of modern monetary theory. And basically the general idea is, if you are a sovereign nation with its own sovereign currency, like the United States, you get to call the shots on how much money you print in an infinite degree. Okay. The barometer for have we printed too much is inflation. If I'm going to put it in as simple a terms as humanly possible.
For the dumb in the back.
So inflation is the barometer, right? If you printed too much, inflation goes rampant and stays rampant. If you didn't print enough, inflation remains subdued, or in the worst case scenario, deflation begins to occur, right? So modern monetary theory is like, we're putting too much emphasis on money. Money is almost, in MMT, like the oil in the gears of an economy. It's not commodity backed anymore. It's a fiat currency.
Yeah, so there's no like gold somewhere where they're like, here's how much gold we have, or
It's like-
silver, or
Right. So it'd be like, think of like a Monopoly board, and, there's money that comes with that board, right? If somebody was like, hey, I'm going to just dump an entire other Monopoly's board worth of money, then suddenly the money means less. But if
Right.
I also took half of it away, the game becomes harder, right? Because now you're fighting over limited cash. So the goal of the Fed under MMT, which they're not like 100% into MMT, but the COVID response was kind of MMT-ish, was we got to find that sweet spot. We got to find that sweet spot of the perfect amount of money for us to get out of this without inflation going nuts, so people can still have what they need to survive, and we can get out of this.
So
There it is.
The big question that I have is, then how does that money that the Fed print get into the bloodstream of the economy? How does it come in?
Stimulus.
yeah, but how?
But I mean, we only get stimulus when there's crisis. We don't just get stimuli.
No.
Or is that like,
I think that word
does that happen every April 15th?
It goes to the banks. It goes to the banks.
Yeah.
It goes
And then they lend.
and then they lend.
Yeah.
Correct. the Fed sets interest rates, right?
Yeah.
So that's another tool that they have. So if they want to be nice to the economy and allow it to grow, they reduce interest rates and print more money.
Yeah.
So now if you're like, hey, I always wanted to open up a vape shop, baby, but nobody's ever given me a loan. And even if I did get a loan, it's 8.5%. And damn, they're being restrictive. They're looking at my credit score, etc. If we're in a supportive economic environment and there's just the banks are sitting on tons of free cash and we're in a low interest rate environment, suddenly you're opening that vape shop. Economic activity begins to transpire.
Which is kind of where we're at now.
But there's probably a reason why they didn't lend to 8% guy. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Where he was a risk.
Right.
To 8% guy?
8% guy who didn't want to take the loan at 8% because they're asking questions.
Gotcha.
And now they're not asking questions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the over under on that guy?
Yeah, well,
prior or now to being successful and participating in the economy.
So if I can field this, basically, 2008, for those who, most people still don't know why that happened. So banks had money, everything's all right. And, housing value, it's there. So some asshole came up with a formula and said, your property is going to increase in value 8% a year forever. Okay. So
in regards to property taxes.
No, it's great. Yes. No, but your estimated value. So bank gives you, mortgage at 6, 7, 8%. And they're like, all right, this house is going to be worth, more in 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So if they default, we're covered, whatever. And people were buying overpriced homes, and there were literally guys, and I met a couple of these guys that had a portfolio book of homes in a value, and you would buy this house and they'd give you an Audi, or an SUV or whatever. They would give you a car for buying this house because you took a loan through their mortgage company back then, because they were getting, the VIC. So
what? I mean, that was prior to 2018.
Prior.
Prior
to 2008. Yeah.
Well, that's what led to
that was
2008.
Right. Like literally, you're buying a house, they're giving you an Audi, like specifically, again, dealt with guys that were doing this thing. And then all of a sudden, people are spending outside of their means. And all of a sudden, loans started going default. Now, we're not talking like 1 or 2 in our bank. We're talking like a lot of them in the portfolio. So that's why, you hear the term when a house is underwater, that means house is worth 100. You took out a loan for 200,000, then what? You're stuck.
And you owe like 250, 270 on the loan.
Right.
Or 300 on the loan.
To all that though, too, at that time, all these loans that were going into default, they were packaging them into a deal, and those were being sold off as basically a short stock.
Yes.
So these giant corporations were buying all these and just letting them all tank because they were getting more money out of it that way.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the housing collapse and the balloon.
They were leveraging those loans.
Yeah.
They were leveraging the failure of them.
They were.
Well, on The Big Short, that dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple people took, bet against it and made billions of dollars.
Are you and I the only ones that don't know how the world works?
All right.
Damn.
I feel like I can put it in simple terms.
Wait, babies come from where?
All right. So my job is putting this kind of stuff in simple. So it's like, basically, when you get a mortgage, the bank does not really, unless it's a very large bank, does not generally keep that mortgage. They sell that mortgage to somebody else.
I've been in my house for about a month.
Already?
My mortgage has been sold twice already.
Already?
Right.
So, but your bank is still servicing it?
No.
Oh.
No, my first payment is due yesterday. And
oops.
I got to figure out, because it just got sold again. I just got a letter today.
Yeah.
It got sold again.
Right.
And I have to take care of this on Monday.
Yeah. A lot of
So I don't even know who to write a check to right now.
Right. A lot of the times you may bank with, First Bank of Scranton, because it doesn't exist. But you bank with First Bank of Scranton. They will service the loan, but they've already sold it to,
Wells Fargo,
JP Morgan, Stearns, somebody. who's, now they're splitting that interest. So you're paying, what are you paying? 3%
Yeah.
for? Okay. So let's call it 4%. First National Bank of Scranton is getting 2%. The other guys are getting 2%, or it could
So
be
they'll take on some of the
1-3.
risk in order to get a little bit of the reward.
So yeah, they are the risk, because they're like, hey, you gave him 100,000. Here's 100,000, but just keep nice with them and make sure they're paying.
Let me ask you this. So when my wife and we got married in 2003.
Well, wait, you were going to say something. I forget what you were getting at.
Well, it was just
You were
I
something
didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
so they just lump all of these, like Alex is saying, they lump all of these mortgages into what they call mortgage-backed securities.
Mhm.
Okay,
Basically like an insurance policy.
no, it's like a stock or a
Stock. Oh,
bond.
yeah.
It's more like
Yeah.
a bond, right? So then they take, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars at Joey's local bank of Dunmore, right? And they're like, hey, JP Morgan, I have a lump of mortgages that are paying 3%, which is the interest rate you're paying,
Mhm.
right? Do you want to buy them from us? And now that bank gets that 3%,
Right.
right? And then they get like a cut, the people that are selling it. So basically they're like,
a finder's fee.
Yeah.
right, it's like a
Okay.
finder's fee.
So back then we're talking like 8, 9, 10,
9, right.
12%.
So then there's all these people, not just in the United States, but internationally, that are like, damn, look at these American, mortgage-backed securities that are paying 8%, and it's American, so it's got to be good. Everybody in America is rich and affluent, and it's asset-backed because it is a house. But then there's this bubble thing going on with the value of houses,
Mhm.
and then there's these people, because the lending practices are super relaxed, that are like,
Crazy.
yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to afford that totally couldn't. And then at some point, there was all of these nations investing in our mortgages. And as they began to go default,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they're like,
So
Why
what
am
they
I
did
not
with the
getting my-
cost was, with the mortgage, you would come in at a very low percentage.
Mm.
But then after, I think it was 10 years, it would balloon to this massive amount that would almost
arms.
double
No,
or triple.
Adjustable
Your-
rate.
So yeah,
mortgages,
because most of them did. Most
So
of them did
everybody's
like
going from
variable.
like a $400 a month payment to all of a sudden, now I got to pay you
Yeah.
$2,300 a
So-
month, and like that, they're taking
Most
on
of
the
them
house
did
back.
like a variable rate.
Right, yeah. So
So
that's
that
when
was
we
like-
had what they called ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. And for a short term, you're
Which is like
cool.
the worst thing
It
to
is.
ever do.
But
Worst
like
thing
for
to
a
ever
short
do.
term, 5-10 year, you're like, oh, this ain't bad. I'm going to borrow this because I'm going to, pay 4%. But then other people, again, you got to read the fine print, because most like commercial loans now are 5-year fixed, 5-year fixed, 5-year, on a 20-year, every 5 years, the rate changes. Most residentials now are like 30-year straight fixed, I think. So you really got to like pay. Well, so now they fixed a lot of that, and the fine print is there to protect you. But before it was just the Wild West.
Yeah.
Like
Am I wrong in thinking that this seems like it's taking advantage of people?
back then.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Oh yeah.
Mortgage
Like knowingly,
brokers,
but they knowingly knew that they were that this shit might happen.
Yeah, but look at my house.
I think
That's why it was a worldwide financial
Right.
crisis. Because we kept being like the mortgage brokers are like, this is a bad idea. But after I get my commission, it's not my problem. It's
Did
the
it-
bank's problem.
Exactly.
And
Did
then
they
the
really
bank
know,
goes, it's
though?
not my problem because I'm going to sell this damn thing to JP Morgan.
So they're
it's
just
their
passing.
problem.
They're just passing the
And then
problem.
JP Morgan's like, I'm going to sell this to the Icelandic government because they have no idea.
So
what's
everybody
going on
knew.
here.
Everybody knew, and as long as they weren't holding the ball when the shit happened, they felt okay with it.
Yes.
Well,
Did they-
so like I was saying, when my wife and I, we got married 2003, 2004, 2005 ish. I'm going to college. She's not working because we had just had Phoenix. So I'm working as much as I can, going to college full time. I probably was making about $25,000 a year. We went to go buy our first house. They approved us for a mortgage of $180,000.
Yep.
So that would have taken 90% of my paycheck to pay that mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy.
so. That's what I was saying. I think a few people knew this was going to happen, but I think majority didn't know. They were hedging, right?
Did they trust, not verify?
No, they were hedging, right? So basically, what they're thinking is, property value is going to increase, so that goes in their favor. And they were also thinking that's like income is going to go up as well, so you'll be able to afford it, right? And then those things didn't happen.
No.
Those things didn't happen. Income didn't go up. people were struggling to pay. And then now you have variable interest kicking in where you go in, like somebody that is not even supposed to be getting interest at subprime rate is being given interest at subprime rate. And then all of a sudden that 8%, 9% subprime is like 15%, 20% that you have to pay back.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell is happening?
Because banks want their money first. You take a 30-year loan. By 15, or you even money at 15, principal payment versus interest is pretty much equal at about then. And then when you get to the end of the loan, the bank's like, no, we got all the interest we want from you, so we're just going to split what we need. Because, I mean, that's what loans are. They lay it out to you and say, hey, Johnny, you want a $100,000 loan at 4% over 30, 20 years. It's going to cost you X throughout the term. And then that's up to you to make extra payments and things like that. And some people round up the payment and that reduces some time. Some people make one extra payment a year that reduces time. Double payments, bi-monthly payments, whatever.
And then another thing though too, right? With the housing property, you could reclaim the house and resell.
Yeah.
But what happened, especially like in 2008, was the property value was like, it just skyrocketed that nobody wanted to buy. So now the banks repossessed all these properties and they're sitting on them because nobody wants to buy, because one, nobody has money as well.
I bought them.
You bought the houses?
That's when I bought. Yeah.
So then,
by the way, unrelated, do you guys get the stats on like when people drop off listening to your show? Because I think the second we started talking about adjustable rate mortgages.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Really?
I think it's really interesting.
So the whole point of this show is to educate Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm the visual representation of most people in America.
Yeah. So can we talk about Enron now, or
no? So
let's take a turn then. Okay, we got some financial guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are smart financial guys. Wait, are we the only not financial guys in here?
yeah, but you're successful.
You own a business.
Business
You know how to balance a
Business
checkbook?
is the real shit. Man.
Okay, first of all, no.
but we're like Voltron in here. We all kind of have our own little department that we're working from.
Yes.
You form the head.
But for me, with my business, I tell, like, if I go talk to Marywood or the year college, whatever, I tell everybody, if you didn't study accounting or law, your two highest bills should be to your accountant and your lawyer.
Yep.
Hands down.
I think that's where my line of questioning was coming, because I was going to say none of these people, they take like accounting and stuff out of schools and how to balance a checkbook, and you think like, oh, these are just stupid things, and it's like, man, these are simple just to get through life shit, and they don't teach it. So then when it comes to something like this, you have an entire group of people whom think that they are investing in their future, but they don't have the tools to understand what the piece of paper they're signing means or what it is.
Most professional athletes, straight up, most professional athletes, that's it. They get constantly, you hear stories about them getting
lose
hacked
everything
by
within
their
4 years.
The agents and stuff
I understand that, and those are the stories that we know.
Yeah.
But Marky,
I'm not the stories that we don't know.
This goes back to the conversation that we had when Greg was here. We were talking about charter schools and the difference between public schools and charter schools or private schools. Within public schools, there is a curriculum that is taught because you are training a generation of workers. You can't have workers that know how to rise above their station, or else you lose the workers.
Yep.
So when you teach people civics, how the government works, how it should work, when you teach people how the law works, when you teach people how money works and moves, well, now you know how the game is played. If I knew how the game was played, if I was better with money, if I was smarter, if I knew some of these things, I would financially be in much better shape. And then what would happen is, I went to the bank the other day just to make a deposit, but I noticed a few things. If I go for a business loan, it's about 6% interest right now.
That's high.
That's just what it is right now. But if I go put money in a CD, it's 0.06 return.
So
it's a business.
To go on to the Reagan years of things. So I think when my parents built their house in Lake Ariel,
time machine.
Oh yeah. So my parents built their house in Lake Ariel. I want to say it was something like 15 to 18% back in the Reagan years. But your savings account,
what?
Oh yeah, that's how things used to be. But your savings account was gaining you like 8 to 10%. So the bank
is more relative.
Yeah. So the bank's going to take, right now they're going to charge you 6%, and they're going to give peanuts over there, but the rest is, operational costs and things like that. So pre-pandemic, I had an online savings account through a big bank. Actually, not even a big bank, through a big major credit card company. And I was getting like 2.4%. It was amazing.
Wait, what year?
Like
Probably
a year and a half ago, 18 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
18 months ago, I was getting
good rates back
savings for 2%.
2.4% on a savings account. So think about it. When you go to an online bank that doesn't have branches or anything like that, what are you not paying for? Branches, employees, stuff like that. Now, I still have a local bank that I do everything with, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw some money here, and I'm never going to see it. He knows about it, and that's that. So it sat there, and then every week I'd get an email, and it was like, we just adjusted your rate to 1.7. Nope, we just adjusted your rate to 1.3. Nope, 0.80. And now I think I'm at 0.20.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, I think that's the maximum. Like, because I've looked at these online savings accounts.
Years ago,
I have a couple as well.
Yeah,
and I think the max I had was like 1.5.
No, they were just about right before the pandemic. It was about 2%. Yeah.
All right, so all of that just bored the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So,
so now let's get back to now.
Yeah,
because we were in a time machine.
Yeah, I love you guys, but
thousands.
As soon as you started talking interest rates, I was like,
Yeah.
I
right.
don't know what I'm talking about.
Can I ask a question? Take a little bit of a left turn.
Not yet. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Ready? Go.
There's just sadness. I'm just sad now. All right, you go, then I'll
That's
go.
a YP, not an MP.
You go, then I'll go.
Maybe it's the same question and we don't know.
Yeah,
yet.
ask it.
Okay.
On 3. 1,
No.
2.
Do you think that there will be an economic repercussion to what's happening in New York City right now?
New York City?
Oh,
With the vaccine mandate to
yes. Patronage,
whatever.
Yeah.
Restaurants, businesses. Like, do you think there will be an economic downfall from that?
I don't know what's going on in New York City. Catch me up.
So-
the mayor just passed a law mandate, whatever proclamation, that you have to show proof of vaccination to go to restaurants, any indoor entertainment, gyms, anything like that. If you're not vaccinated, you can't go.
So I think the point to come at this is forget about like the COVID vaccines, any of that, right? When you stop a certain group of people who would go to your business from going to your business, will that, especially in a community or a city or anywhere, will that affect the city? Forget the people. I mean, everyone wants to live in that city, and everything's got to be run properly so you can have nice roads and blah blah blah, and law enforcement and fire. But what eventually happens? I mean, we live in a distressed city here, or at least up until recently. And, a lot of people started to give a shit about like, where's their money going and what is happening? Because why are we never balancing the checkbook at City Hall?
Ever.
Until last year, strangely enough.
What?
Yes.
That can't be true.
It was in the paper.
Yeah.
What does that do? Because in the if-then game, forget about who's who, forget about what side anybody's on. What does the math tell you?
I mean, if you have fewer customers, it's going to hurt you. But I don't know how long that will continue is probably the big variable.
Well, I don't think anybody does, which is why it's an interesting question, because you don't know if it's 2 weeks or 2 years, or once you give that ability, do they relinquish it ever?
Well, I'm sorry.
All right. So here's my insight on this, and here's where
make sure episode 6 we make sure Alex is the guest.
Yeah. So no, real quick, because I study this stuff. So basically, what'll happen now, and it's been happening. We're benefiting. Scranton is benefiting.
I'm not talking about Scranton.
No. Why
What
is
are we
Scranton-
benefiting from?
Because we're 2 hours away from New York.
People are mad at
Oh,
New York.
100%. Yeah.
And when I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
done. I'm
Yeah.
done with New York. I don't want to be here anymore. You're
Charlie
going to do
doesn't have an
this.
apartment for rent for months.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there is an exodus happening, and
Yeah.
that's why, there's always that debate, upstate New York versus New York City, who pays what, who pays who. So businesses are shuttering and closing. Okay, so you're not getting your license revenue, you're not getting your taxi revenues, you're not getting all your revenue streams, you're literally grabbing by the balls and putting them in a vice. And now you're losing income, income tax, I should say. So there's people who just jet set off to their house in Connecticut, and they're like, all right, well, I'm not going to go to the city. I'm just going to work from Connecticut, pay Connecticut taxes, be done with it.
There are millions of people in that city who don't have that option.
Oh, no, of course. But slowly but surely, and that's why our housing market here is on fire, because there's such a high demand for homes outside of New York.
So but what you're explaining to me is a benefit.
For us.
The question
what happens to New York City?
What happens to New York? Rents drop immensely. Like we're talking $3,000 a month apartments are now $1,500.
Supply goes up.
Yeah.
Demand goes down.
You will see mortgage
Price
defaults.
goes down.
So back to my original question. Yeah. What does the math tell you? Forget about who, forget about what.
It's going to hurt, but New York's got that like New York effect where you can be from like Transylvania and you always dreamed of living in New York. So I don't think it's not going to be like if we got down and out.
So would people like you be interested in buying up apartment buildings right now?
In New York? This would be a great time to buy apartment. Well, I got to watch what I say because I can't really give investment advice. But
so don't advise me.
Yeah.
Will people be doing that?
I feel like I'm getting cut off here.
It could be the head.
Look, it's one of these deals where it's like Warren Buffett said it. When people are greedy, be fearful. And when people are fearful, be greedy. Whoa. So, yeah.
Confucius say.
Right? No, there's Buffett.
I've never heard that before, and it's brilliant.
So
you should have claimed it, dude.
I'll just leave it at that. I mean, if we want to listen to a billionaire investor, Warren Buffett, and his advice in one of those situations, he might say something like that.
I guess where I'm having the conflict in my brain is that on one side, there's people saying 2 + 2 = 4. And on the other side of my brain, they're saying 2 + 2 = 5. And and it seems like a lot of people, a concerning amount of people are 2 + 2 = 5. Because I don't think they think of like the long-term economic problems for current, as you would say, fear, what leads to greed?
Well,
I'm so confused by this analogy.
Yeah.
Oh, in my brain, it made sense.
Well, I guess you're saying there might be long-term repercussions based off of the current policies that they
I think that's what I'm
saying.
Are you
leading from like the idea that all these smaller shops that have been in New York City for hundreds of years, all these mom and pop stores, restaurants, and everything are all shutting down now. New York is going to have a new face. What is that face going to look like?
I'm sorry, Audrey. Did you want to?
No, I was going to say. I mean, with everything, right? You look at it. There's always going to be something else that is coming up.
Yeah.
There's always going to be like the system is going to self-correct. I mean, obviously, yeah, you need tools to be able to help it, to self-correct. But there's going to be another industry that is going to spring up. So yes, maybe in the short term, and I think that is kind of like what we all struggle with because we live in the short term. So in the short term, it is so painful. And you're like, oh my goodness, like what is happening, right? But in the long term, something else is going to come up, right? You look at 2008 when everything started, crashing. What happened? Now you see Uber, you see Airbnb. I mean, like different industries coming, disrupting the business model or the economic model.
Crisis leads to innovation.
I think that is what is going to happen. And maybe that is kind of like what Warren Buffett is saying as well. When people are greedy, be fearful, and when they are fearful, be greedy, because then that is going to lead. So you're going to start seeing opportunities.
Right. I'm sorry.
No. You could jump in.
So there's this concept in economics that has a fancy name that I never remember, but the way I describe it is if you basically just chart out economic growth, GDP-wise, the S&P, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, from the moment we began tracking it until this very day, right? It is a extremely chaotic line upwards, okay? When you're in that line on a short-term basis, the chaos feels very real because it is very real, right?
Right.
But when you zoom out and you look over like the entirety of your investing life, the entirety of your business life, perhaps those things that were perceived as chaotic moments were in fact opportunities Because generally speaking, we get over it.
Yeah.
What happened?
Alex is a ferret.
Have you looked at the real GDP from like 2007 up until now? Like when you're looking at the growth, like
a chaotic,
what you're gonna see that, and
but with dips growing. But when you zoom in, it looks crazy.
You zoom out. Oh yeah, when you zoom in, it looks crazy. When you zoom out, you're like, oh, it looks like a very nice, like kind of just climbing upward trend. So I guess.
So I mean, is the lesson there? Don't panic now. Be
you basically
a little bit more zen.
I think that's a good way to say it. I think you basically have two choices, okay, when it comes to business, when it comes to investing, when it comes to this entire discussion. You either have to say to yourself, we will get over this, and are there opportunities that present themselves in this chaos that I might want to exploit or take advantage of, or is this going to be the moment that all goes to shit and it's all over, right? And if you truly, truly believe all is going to go to shit and it's all over, then don't be a hypocrite. Go sell all your stuff. Go buy some goats and potato sprouts. Go buy land up in Waymart and go start living off the land because the end is coming.
Right.
But nobody does it. We just sit around and bitch and complain. All right?
So that's like a manifest destiny thing.
You just got to there it is.
Yeah. All I see is up.
Well, up-ish.
I don't know about that,
but
you got to have some stones to do this.
But even if
You
you
got to have
look
some stone.
even if you look at 10 years ago, right, you see it's been going up. The only time that it dropped, like real GDP, especially like dropped like big time, was 2020.
Yeah,
because COVID, and that's what Brian talked about. Like it was such a huge impact that it affected
So where are those
everybody.
big dips? Dan, can you hover over that?
So that
World
one
War
is about
II.
2008.
That goes to 2008.
So it goes up and then it comes back down. That's 2008 right there. And then we're on the ascend from there to like 2020, 21.
And what are we looking at here exactly?
Dow.
The Dow.
From it looks like
100-year historical chart.
1900 through 2000 and beyond.
I mean, if you want to get a better snapshot, I mean, do the 5-year, right? I mean, isn't it what you guys typically look at?
Or
5 or 10 year.
Look
There we
at
go. There we go.
There you go.
So is that?
you're
So that's
seeing-
the drop. That's the COVID drop.
COVID, yeah.
Early COVID, yeah.
Plus, I don't know if you want to use the Dow as the index to do it because it's all
I
industrial.
don't know.
Look at the S&P.
The S&P or
It's the top 500 largest companies in the
I'd say
United
it's going to look similar.
Maybe not as dramatic.
I would venture to say it's booming right now.
or like even the
Booming.
10 like the 10-year treasury, right?
Well, that's just, yeah.
Are you guys just showing off at this point?
Oh,
So
Are we just having like
it's like
a
watching you guys on Jeopardy.
yeah, it's like a financial dick measuring contest out here.
Who knows more? Let's get into foreign
Well,
currency.
here's what I all know, or what I know about y'all. It would hurt if I got hit with your financial.
but it's, yeah.
He
So you
knows
just,
I think.
financial
I
judo.
think. I don't.
not to interrupt you, but let's all
That's
get
why
back,
you're here.
Let's get back to the core, right?
Yeah.
The core. There's this great book that if you're really interested in economics, I'd highly suggest it. It's called The Worldly Philosophers. Has anybody ever?
I've heard of it.
The Worldly Philosophers makes the statement that basically the most influential philosophical thinkers in humanity were economists. Okay, because if you think about the thoughts of economists, generally speaking, it was economic thought that had the most profound impact on the lives of billions of people, like communism versus capitalism. Those decisions, those dudes that thought of those two things have profound impacts on billions and billions and billions and billions
We've
of
literally
people.
fought wars over it.
Right. So the book kind of takes you through like the lives and thoughts of all of the great economists of our time.
Yeah.
And Adam Smith, the dude that he did not invent capitalism, but instead documented capitalism. Because when you read Wealth of Nations, he doesn't say, hey, I thought of some new shit called capitalism. What he did was he was like insanely intelligent. He was a professor at Oxford, and he would just like putz around the UK looking at all these different villages and just took great notes on the economic transactions that he saw and patterns that he saw.
So he was seeing like these macro examples
And micro examples. Like he had like a 60-page, he was like, on an aside, let me tell you what I observed about silver. And it went on for 60 pages. And you're like, God damn, that's not a quit. But the book is like huge, right?
Right.
So anyway, he published that book in 1776. Anybody know what happened in 1776?
Only the greatest year ever.
Right.
Well, actually, no history existed before 1776.
Not real history.
So our founding fathers were like, hey, let's try something new.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try this capitalism thing that Adam Smith was
Were there
talking
other
about.
things on the drawing table for that?
Yeah, they wanted to potentially have a mixed economy where the government had a big impact on the economic decisions, similar to if there was still a monarchy.
Oh, there was massive fights. Like you look at what happened
Over what financial system?
I mean, the whole, and it's so fresh on my mind. You know how, so these guys prepared for this podcast. You know what I did last night? I watched Hamilton for the 78th time.
Oh, man. My wife would love you.
Yeah.
She loved that.
Yeah. I mean, so.
Wait, I did not prep.
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't prep?
You
know
him.
him.
You have a pre.
I know.
You
him
know
too.
him. Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know Brian.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you go back to, everybody just kind of thinks that it was like, oh, all these people in a room were like, yeah, we should all just do this. The vote barely passed to even send the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
There was then massive fights for years, decades, over the banking systems, over how the government was going to be structured. And it really boils down to we, at that time, we transitioned, I think, over the past 70, 80 years, but we were a country formed on freedom of economy. Because at the end of the day, having a freedom of choice of how to live your life means nothing if you can't spend your money the way you want to, if you can't receive it the way you want to. I mean, there was all-out brawls over how the country was going to be formed on a financial basis.
Jefferson and Hamilton were sworn enemies.
Yeah.
Jefferson wanted a strong central bank. Hamilton was like, are you out of your mind? Why? That's basically the king again.
Yep.
So basically Adam Smith at the conclusion of his book said, I think that capitalism will be the best because it will result, and this is the thing, right? This is the most important part of his book. It will result in the best lifestyle for the people within that system.
Yep.
Sometimes people are like, capitalists, you capitalist pigs, all you care about is the people at the top and blah, 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 blah. All that. Adam Smith never said that. Adam Smith said, I think that if you apply capitalism, it will have the greatest net benefit on the society that it's applied within, right?
Right.
So the issue is it's not pretty, okay? It's not.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good, and sometimes it's very, very bad. Sometimes things can happen within capitalism, and I'm going to tie this back into current events, okay? That aren't just like, oh, man, Bill Smith's vegan restaurant went out of business. Bummer. That's bad enough, but sometimes it can result in things like Great Depressions, right? Where there's a period of 11 or 12 years where you're like holding your starving child in your arms and you have to come to some tough decision. So it's not necessarily cute, right? It's very serious things that can happen.
You can win big and you can lose big.
You can win big and you can lose big. So this whole MMT thing, this whole New Deal economic thing was basically a shift in thinking in light of the Great Depression. MMT is very recent. The New Deal and government intervention and the Fed and all that stepping up was a result of seeing the pits of capitalism. So now, like I said in the beginning, we're living in an experiment because we don't really have economics figured out.
Right.
Like we don't know how to really make everybody happy. We don't know. It's still a big question mark.
But at the end of the day, is that the job of the economic political leaders, or is it just fair is fair? If I have a product, I sell it. We don't manipulate the system, or does the economic system need to be manipulated in order to survive?
I mean, but you need regulations, so you can't just leave it to individuals
and you
to
can't
kind of decide.
It'd be like fair is fair, crystal meth. People like it, like
it's true. People do like crystal meth.
They love
I
it.
don't get it.
So
not for me.
It must be amazing.
It kind of goes back to what I was talking about in our second episode. When I called it hyper, and I'm not going to say that again. But basically, because
He said hyper communism
because Greg was going after me. But but basically what it is, and for me, I strongly believe in that, and I think Brian touched on it. I think the perfect, and it's probably not going to be the perfect economy philosophy, but I think is mixed economy. That honestly, that's what I think it is.
But that's what we have now.
It is what we've had it for quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we do, but we lean a little bit more toward, free market. We lean a little bit. The people that I honestly think, and people are gonna kill me, but the people that I honestly
people are gonna kill you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. That I think the country, especially that I think does well.
I know where you're
He's
going.
gonna hear me go.
Oh yeah.
Is one.
I don't know where he's going, guys.
One country in Asia, China does.
Oh.
Yes.
Right. And then there's another country in
I can see
Africa.
why you're gonna get killed. Yeah,
I know. That's right.
Right.
That's why I said. And then there's another country in Africa that is booming right now. The growth rate is just.
I can't wait.
climbing.
I can't wait to hear what you're about to say.
Is Rwanda?
Really?
Really?
and it's a mixed economy.
Yeah, they're doing mixed economy, and they're trying to do it.
So
They're
that's a
trying to find the
mixture
balance.
of capitalism.
and socialism.
socialism,
Yeah, trying to find the balance.
Well, it's
to be
like,
able
Is
to
there
do
a
it.
balance? I mean, if they
Well,
have,
I think there has to be.
Yeah, but so we hear all these things, like you hear Republicans say all the time. They're like, communism doesn't work. Just look at the 800 governments that tried it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And for me, I'm like, they kind of have a point. And then you say, well, capitalism works because just look America. And I'm like, well, you kind of have a point.
yeah.
So if you say to me that like one person's always going to lie and cheat to me, and they've consistently let people down.
But
why should anybody like me say, okay, well, what is the balance of the mix? Like, what are these people doing good? And China they're an interesting country. I'm not so sure that they're totally honest about their social capitalism.
There's a lot of variables about China, though.
Well, I mean, so
But they have free they do have free market.
Yes,
They do have free market.
but they have state-owned.
if you're
But
if you're in a certain caste,
Yes,
you
in
know.
society.
Yeah.
So
if you're a good boy,
and there's work
Poor girl.
ethic that we lack.
But I mean, if you look at, we
Well,
like
what are the things that they're using? Sorry, I mean, I just didn't know. I just don't understand.
I mean, they basically can do everything we can do. They can affect interest rates and print money, and they can, well, one thing that they do in China that I don't know if we've ever done it. Maybe you guys would know this. Like, if a business is not doing well, they'll just straight up
take it over.
Or like they'll let you take it over and give the business money.
We don't do
like
that.
that's kind of like where
they'll give the business money.
Yeah, they take so it's state-owned capital infusions. There's a bunch of companies
that's
that
how they can
have.
lowball us.
Yeah.
That's how they can undercut us, right? Because let's say like
Isn't Alibaba kind of like that?
a little bit. Even though
Alibaba
they're-
has some state funding in it with Jack Ma, if he's alive.
So it's all part so think of it like this. In the United States, let's say for some reason there was some massive public initiative for US made t-shirts to do really well. In the US, we basically say, hey, t-shirt manufacturers of the United States, figure it out, guys, how you're going to pull it off. Good luck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because we want to push American-made T-shirts everywhere.
In China, if for some reason the Chinese economy, they feel that t-shirts is where it's at and they need to be number one in t-shirt manufacturing, they will supplement the income of the t-shirt companies, thus allowing that company to lowball in the open world market of t-shirts. So that's why you can get a t-shirt for 10 cents. Isn't that an app in China? 10 cents. 10 cents.
Because the government subsidizes.
Yeah, because it really did cost them a buck.
They do that farming now, don't they?
Yes. That's an example.
So
you're right.
We do that here in farming.
I got it right. I got one right.
You did it.
We do that with oil. We're pretty big with that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
There might be others. I'm not aware.
I mean,
of.
because like the rest of the world, you're buying a gallon of oil, gas at what? $10.
What we pay for a gallon, they pay for a liter.
Yeah, they pay. So they're buying a gallon.
Gas is about 3 to 4 times in England what it is in the U.S.
Oh, all of Europe.
Yeah.
All of Europe.
Is that just them like taxing though?
No. Because like Europe has to get their natural resources from Russia. And like years ago, Merkel wanted to put an embargo on Russia. And Russia's like, oh, you want energy? Oh, yeah. And they didn't.
But even
don't mess
in
with
Nigeria,
Russians.
even in Nigeria, that is like what one of the is it third or whatever? It's like amongst like one of the big oil producers. They're still buying a gas of gas at like a gallon. I said gas of gas. Gallon of gas at like $10.
Yeah.
What? So
That's what it's called.
what is it's called? Jesus?
No.
So-
Yeah. So there's this actual metric. Can you look this up,
He can do anything. He's our young Jamie.
Jamie?
His
Look
name's
up
Dan, but he's young Jamie.
Gini. I think it's GINI coefficient.
GINI coefficient.
Yeah. So you can bring it up on the screen. It's probably spelled
Can you
incorrectly.
explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so the Gini coefficient is a metric that you can use at a national level to see the distribution of wealth of that nation. Okay. So if it's a Gini coefficient of 0, it means that almost every single person within that nation has an equal amount. If it's 1, they usually do it either 0 to 1 and as a decimal or 0 to 100 to make it a little easier. The higher the Gini coefficient, the less of a distribution of wealth there is. So if you
look at New York, the highest is that so that's not
that's
an
bad.
equal distribution of
That's
wealth.
bad. Yeah, that means that it's not. So that's the point that I want to bring up. A lot of times they're like, "Oh, I bet the United States is like has a really high Gini coefficient because the top 1% is evil and they control everything."
Right.
Not necessarily true. As a matter of fact, the ones with the highest Gini coefficients are socialist countries. So,
Really?
Yes.
Oligarchy.
Well, because
Right.
there's such a disparity, there is no middle class.
Right.
It's
Right.
you have the
Well, okay.
again,
Whoa. That's important to put that in there.
what?
That there is no middle class in those countries.
Well, yeah. I mean, it goes back to that whole thing that we've been talking about the past couple weeks. If we keep going down this path, it's going to be a culture, a caste system of the haves and the have-nots.
It's a basically a grappling. And I listened to your first episode and I kept thinking about the owner
Man, that
of,
guy's racist.
that was a fleeting thought. So it was like I can't remember the old CEO of Whole Foods before they sold it.
Oh, is that the guy that's like doing the tour lately? I've seen him on a couple of shows.
Is he kind
He's
of
been
like,
on Rogan and,
He's like
and Bill
very,
Maher.
I think it's the
Looks
same
like
guy.
Larry David.
Yes.
Yeah. I forget his name.
So there we go. Gini coefficient. Look bad. Some of these places are pretty nasty.
Red is bad, right?
Red is bad. We're pretty bad. I guess it went up since the last time. Well, everybody, I'm wrong. Gini's high in the United States right now. But going back to the guy from Whole Foods, he was talking about, and I think this speaks to your first episode, how the system that we're in now effectively has failed the educated. Okay. And this is how he describes it. So he basically said, first of all, we came from England, right? So if you're a dude from England, Aj's not from England. It sounded like they were like they were hanging out in your country a little bit. But
He's from the country of Africa, for anyone who's confused.
So you went to their school, but they're not, not from England. But basically, if you, like in the 1700s, had the luxury of being able to study poetry or sea turtles or ancient Greece, right?
or art therapy.
Or art therapy.
You learned how to
Right.
oil other men and wrestle them.
Yes. Massage. So all of these different things, right? Generally speaking, in that system, you were probably wealthy or of noble descent. Okay. So if you were able to be highly educated, generally it meant that you were of nobility or rich. You go to the United States and you unleash capitalism on the world. Okay. And suddenly you might have your PhD in bio with a concentration in sea turtles, and you might be, very, very smart, very educated. And then you go to a restaurant and the dude that owns 11 gas stations in your town drives up in a Ferrari and he's buying ribeye for him and his wife and his children. And this was your one date night a year where you're going to Ruth's Chris. And you go, how is this possible? I have my PhD in sea turtles.
Right.
This guy's an idiot. He doesn't even know how to speak correctly.
Right.
The system must be screwed up. But it's not. It's not a system conducive to being highly educated. It's not, right? It's a system that is conducive to, have I created a product or service that will be of use to a lot of people?
Yep.
So the battle that you guys were alluding to, the haves and the have-nots, I view, and this is a personal thing, the politicians, the super educated that make the policies, that is their one last stronghold to implement policies that favor them, absent of having to put in the work that capitalists have to put in to achieve greatness in their life.
Politics.
Because you can get your PhD in political science, learn how to tighten your tie the right way, get your hair perfect, see how to manipulate people correctly and sweet talk, and get a lot of power and a lot of influence.
Somehow Trump became president without knowing anything about ties or hair.
Right. Get all that power and influence, be able to make decisions that profoundly affect the lives of so many people.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, I don't want to say it's not hard work to gain political influence, but like you really didn't have to be of any significant value beyond getting elected. You didn't have to create something. You didn't have to
You just have to be electable.
You just got to be electable. That's a great way to say it. Great way to say it. So now it's kind of like, where are we at? You know, who are going to be the ones that get to make the rules? The ones that were in the trenches?
I mean, I never really thought about it that way, where it's a difference where the educated are getting screwed over.
Well, I mean, you think about it. When a kid graduates college now, unless you're going to go
it
be
makes
a doctor
total sense.
or a lawyer, you're leaving college with $150,000 in debt, and you might graduate and get a job for 40, 50 grand starting out. I mean, lawyers, when they come right out, they go and work at the courthouse making $38,000 a year. They're not making a ton of money.
Nothing.
Now, eventually you will, but I mean, you go, my business, okay? You go for 10 months, you pay, I think it's $10,000 to $12,000 right now for beauty school. Within a year, you could be making 60, 70 grand.
Boom.
Right.
There you go.
Tradesmen.
But why?
Tradesmen.
Yeah, the trades are where it's at right now.
But why?
They are absolutely where
and
it's
the
at.
trades can't get anybody in there.
Nope.
Yep. So, well, there's my brother-in-law's an electrician. They're not doing it specifically, but there are other people in that industry that are offering $5,000 signing bonuses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy the amount of money.
My question is this: is that we have all these economists and intelligent people who sit back and they just like how we get our system of government and currency and whatever we choose to do financially. There's all these people out there that are thinking up shit and forecasting and all this stuff and a lot of the things that I see people like, myself and this crew of knuckleheads talking about is things that like, man, wouldn't it be nice if an economist or somebody said something like, if we don't, if we're now going to have a generation that doesn't know how to lay brick and realize that they could have a really nice life laying brick. I mean, my brother-in-law is a mason. He's incredible at it, but he's like, there's nobody that is coming up to do this.
Right.
Which is why he can charge an arm and a leg.
Right.
But I don't understand why economists, like, why isn't there like this national, all right, on Thursday nights once a month we're gonna say, okay, here's where we're lacking, here's where we're forecasting, here's some of the jobs that are going to be.
It's been glamorized.
Well, it's because we've attributed education with
worth
and status.
Yeah.
It's still kind of like the
but what you're telling me now is that they don't equal.
No way.
And they may have never
they
equaled.
They could, but not necessary. It's not necessary. You gave examples like, if you want to be a physician or you want to be an attorney or you want to be a nurse, you want to be an engineer, then you need the education. Yeah. But if you want to start a business,
you don't need
to be apprenticed in.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my best friend growing up, we went to college together, same dorm room, freshman year, the whole 9 yards. He dropped out after year one. Okay. Went and worked for his dad, started his own business. A few years later, I get done. I've got all this debt. I mean, I'm a couple years behind him starting my career, if you will. He owns his own house outright. He owns his own business. He's making six figures. He's crushing it because rather than get into debt, having somebody else tell you how to run a business, he just went and learned how to do it. He's making money the whole time. He's getting ahead. Now I'm a couple years behind. So fast forward to where I am now, like I've caught up as a business owner, but I mean, I have this conversation all the time with my son and his friends. They're talking about college. Well, are you going to go to Lackawanna and get a 2-year degree in accounting and learn how money works?
Yep.
And then go start something? You don't need a college degree to sell cars.
I mean, that's what they would tell us. You need that piece of paper or else it doesn't matter.
But who's they?
Your parents, like the school, like, you know, everyone was told this. It's like a big illusion to some degree.
What percentage? It's a great marketing plan.
It's an immigrant mentality. You need the paper to make something of yourself. Like my dad did structural steel his whole life, and he wanted better. No, we're talking like he was there getting dirty, welding stairs, all the shit.
I've been dirty, Alex, doing that.
Oh, please. So he said, no, you're going to go to school and get a better job and a better degree and better whatever, you know, and that's, in my opinion, the immigrant mentality. And, you know,
but it's all changed. It used to be that the lower class, the poorer people did manual labor.
Yes.
And
what are you going to be, a garbage man when you grow up?
Yeah, garbage man.
Dude, my next door neighbor's a garbage man. He's awesome. He's making tons of money.
Bro, New York City garbage man, 80, 90,000 a year.
Well, because in America, somewhere along the line, we started demonizing hard work.
Yes.
You know, it's like, oh, you're blue collar? Well, I'm white collar. And it became this, like, you know,
like a status thing.
Isn't there an argument that could be made, though? Both of you guys, Aja and Brian, they both went to University of Scranton, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're based on the Jesuit philosophy of, it's not just learning your trade, it's also building your mind, your spirit, and everything like that. So you're taking more classes in theology, you know, philosophy, and all those classes. So is there not something valuable to be said of expanding your mind into these ideas that you don't learn necessarily by just going into the job field?
I have some thoughts. Aja, do you want to touch on that?
I mean, great question. Definitely. I mean,
that is a great question.
Yeah, great question.
Good job, Dan.
I honestly think you do, and I honestly think education is so important, right? I don't think is the be all. It is very important, and it separates, but I don't think is the be all. You could still go to school, get all the education that you want, and still learn how to lay bricks. It's okay. It's okay to do that. And the other thing too is, you know, what Micah said, and I've used that analogy before too, with, like, you know, people that want to play, you know, basketball or sports, you know, some kind of, you know, soccer or whatever. What percentage of the people are going to do it? Not a whole lot.
For a career.
Yes.
Yeah. Not many. Like, I think it's
what percentage of what percentage of the population?
But here's the
what percentage of the population is going to create a business?
More than professional sports.
Yeah,
way more.
But it, like, in totality, like, you know, looking at the entire population, let's say let's look at the United States. What
did you say?
300?
No, I'd say about 10%.
Yeah, like about 350 million people. Yeah, like about 10%.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So education is very important, but it's kind of like what I'm doing with my daughter right now. I'm teaching her how to run a business. And I'm showing her. I started doing this because I didn't learn that. I mean, I come from a family where we like education, because I come from a tribe where education is the thing. Like, they don't care if you make money. Like, you just need to sound smart.
Is that a status thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons I kept, like, for a very long time. For me personally, for a very long time, I felt inadequate. You know, like when I meet people and they tell me, "Oh man, Aja, you're smart," I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I was always reading. Like, lately I don't do that anymore. I don't care. But I was always reading.
He's like, give it up.
It's serious. Like, I was always reading and everything, right? Which is okay, like, to acquire the knowledge and everything. But the other thing is, you need to be able to transfer that knowledge to something else, you know, to be able to make something out of it. And not a lot of people could do it. And I think that is where, like, the tradesmen and stuff like that come in. So if you can find the balance, that's great. So I was talking about my daughter. Like, right from, like, when she was like 6 or 7, I started teaching her what compound interest means. And we started calculating that. Now she's 14. I'm allowing her to run my Christian clothing company. She runs everything. And we talk about it. Right. So I'm teaching her. And at the end of the day, and she actually created this design and everything. And at the end of the day, I also tell her that it's good to go to school. And she just recently got accepted into one of the top private high schools.
No shit, man! Congratulations
in the country, right? And full ride. And I also told
double congratulations.
I also told her that I'm not paying. I also told her that I'm not paying for anything. So she has to learn how to work hard. And I think that is what a lot of us are missing. Like, I'm talking about, like, when I said that, it's like, don't say either or. You could do both. You could learn
That's
to
a great,
do both.
Great point.
I
You can
love
learn
that.
to do both. And I think for me, that is what I learned with my Jesuit education.
Will you adopt me?
Yeah.
He's,
for
he's
real. It's a great
I
point.
can
he's
cook.
probably old enough.
You're older than me. You can adopt me.
Yeah.
I'm like only 5 years older than you.
You could still adopt me, dude.
It's a
If you
great
were
point.
18 and I was 13, you could have adopted me.
It's like think like martial arts example. Like there's
I was
this,
thinking it came back to judo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's like you could sit down and read books all the time on like how to punch and kick, and then like you could like recite it and be extraordinarily knowledgeable of it. But unless you actually know how to apply it in a real world situation,
useless,
it's useless.
What did Mike Tyson say? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So to Aj's point, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with education, but I think there has to be a component to being able to effectively apply that to make your life better in some way. Unless your goal is to educate again. So like if you are the type of person that is studying philosophy and you think that somehow that's going to land you a big job, really the only big job it's going to land you is teaching philosophy to other people.
Yep.
And if that's your goal,
And that's how
you're
you
like,
become Indiana Jones.
unless you want to become Indiana Jones.
No, that's
He's an
how you become.
archaeologist.
Oh, shut up, Dan.
So then that's
What is it? Those who don't do teach, or something?
Those that can't teach.
can't
Right.
teach. No, those that can't teach do, and those that
I think.
Oh,
I
Jesus
think we need
Christ.
to cut. I think we need to cut this part out.
Go back to Indiana Jones.
Oh, my God. All right. So you have a heart out, right?
I got to leave here at 5.
I
Okay.
have to leave here at 4:50.
Okay. So I want to, what time do we have?
442.
Okay.
So we
So
basically have
in about
15
10 minutes,
Yeah.
I kind of want to go through what was the impetus for the podcast, and tell me a little bit about Chris,
Chris Sykes.
Yeah.
My buddy, my partner.
and then kind of what's in the future for you. So what was the impetus for the Success Fundamentals podcast?
So my colleague Chris Sykes and I often have discussions very similar to the discussion that we had today. And, we work with high net worth people, but I don't want to say on a superficial level, but like we don't get deep with all of our clients. Right?
Yeah.
And then you end up seeing that there's certain attributes that appear to be similar with people that have achieved greatness. And we basically thought, why don't we set up a podcast where every single week, all we do is interview and try to get very deep with people, regardless of industry, that have achieved greatness and see what makes them tick. See if there's anything that's similar, see if there's any differences, and hopefully get wisdom from them. So we're
Brilliant.
We're about 10 episodes in, but we've recorded probably about 20 so far that
Or you're just slowly just
we're releasing
weekly?
them once a week. Yeah.
once a week?
And let me tell you, there's stuff that I learned in these 2 months from just interviewing these men and women that
It's
in my
invaluable.
invaluable, and not just business wise, philosophically, emotionally, spiritually, and it's really turning out to be something special.
Isn't it interesting how nuanced conversation makes you a better person?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So, how many of these people, take mushrooms? I'm just kidding. You're saying spiritually. I was like, there's got to be an ayahuasca trip in there somewhere.
One of the guys I think was in some form of intoxication on one of our
On your podcast.
Yeah, but but it was a great conversation.
It always is,
And
brother.
by one of the guys, are you referring to yourself?
No.
Can I ask you, like, as we kind of wrap this up, I love this podcast. I mean, for me, this is the sort of stuff that I geek out on. Learning from other people. So for me, if you ever stop learning, then you stop growing. It's just a lifetime of learning. That's how you have to be. And what is the number one thing you've learned? What do all of these people have in common? Like the one big takeaway?
Ooh, that's a great question.
So far.
Yeah.
And it might even be 2 things.
Yeah, there's probably
Because I think I have a theory on what it
What was that word you used earlier?
grit.
It was grit, but it wasn't grit. It was the other thing. Prudence.
Prudence.
Yeah.
The one thing that I notice about our guests is that they are relentless and not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot of our guests basically will just push through any obstacle that gets in their way. That might be the core thing that I found. So like
resilience.
Yeah. They can just, because
COVID didn't shake them.
COVID didn't shake them. Yep. Rejection doesn't shake them. Politics doesn't shake them. They have their mind on where they want to go.
Yep.
And really nothing's going to stop
them. From hell or
them.
high water, they're getting there.
Yeah. And then there's all like different, some are extraordinarily good at customer service, like the episode with Al Patel. If you want to learn about customer service that's like out of this world, Al's episode was out of this world. He taught me stuff that I was like, Al, this is going to change my career.
Oh, really?
Career, like absolutely. And then there's some people that like, one of the women that we interviewed, it hasn't posted yet. She came out of like I think she said like out of a trailer park in like northern Canada from a drug addicted mom, and now she's like doing mergers and acquisitions.
That's
for
unbelievable.
IBM.
That's unbelievable.
That was my dream.
Not to
your dream was to come out of a trailer park.
No. Was I wanted to get into? I wanted to get into M&A.
M&A is.
I wanted to.
It's crazy.
I mean, I think I would eventually someday, but.
Okay, you're saying, Dan?
So, yeah, I didn't want to like steal from your podcast. I definitely want people to check it out. But when Al was talking about his customer service, like you were saying, and it got to me too, because he was saying how people were coming in. The first year, he bought everybody sweatshirts. He was giving them away. And the next year, he bought sweatshirts and wine. He was giving them away to his customers when people are coming in. Just the amount of service of remembering them, talking to them, not beautiful. Just giving them their change and not saying, making it feel like a family, and how much that affects a business to put that face to your company and personal
that has
attitude.
Been the absolute key to the success and growth of Lavish.
Yeah, like, same with Center City.
100%. My wife knows everybody's name, everybody's birthday. She knows where your kids are going to school.
Their color number.
Yeah. Like we literally were giving away wine. Do you want coffee? I have literally driven down to Cigars International to get cigars and an ashtray for a woman who wanted the perfect gift for her husband. But she couldn't find it at Lavish. She said, don't worry, let me take care of it.
Wow.
Like, if you go above and beyond for people, if you have people skills, if you have the discipline to persevere no matter what, and if you have the people skills, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you do podcasts for a living. It doesn't matter if you finance. It doesn't matter if you print. It doesn't matter if you make beautiful movies. It doesn't matter what you do. Like, it doesn't matter if you play baseball. It does not matter. If you're good with people and you have the perseverance, you're going to be successful. There's no two ways about it.
Absolutely.
This is this great book that I'm reading. I forget who writes it, but it is called
Jesus. It's the Bible.
No, it's called. I mean, maybe Dan can put it up too. It's called the Customer Service Revolution.
Oh,
and it's just basically disrupting customer service and your view on customer service. I've been using that a lot, especially with like the like when I'm leading community groups and things like that. I've had people walk up to me and like basically just talking about like my success with leading community groups, like because these are volunteers. Right. So how do I even get them to come back on a regular basis and still enjoy what they're doing? They're not being paid, but they're doing it. And I got a lot of those points, from like the customer service. Customer service revolution.
Wow.
Well, I talk to a lot of business owners because of what I do, and some that are, I say, better at business than me, and some that I maybe have a little bit more time in and I'm a little bit more knowledgeable. But like, I love to have these conversations with other business owners, and often I'll say, like, what do you use for your point of sale? What is your and just so you can kind of learn and grow and get better. But when it always comes down to certain things, it's what do you do for loss prevention and security? It's customer service.
Yeah.
If I'm providing good customer service, you can't stick anything in your pocket.
Oh yeah.
What do you do for your marketing budget? What is your marketing plan?
Customer service. Yeah.
Because if people come in and they have an experience, okay, Lavish, we do hair, we do spa, and we do retail. You know who else does that really well? About 15 other people in Scranton. I mean, we're very good at hair. I think we're the best. But there are other people that do hair very well. You know what they don't? Nobody does as well as we do.
Let you drink it.
Let you drink. Customer service.
Hair.
Yeah. It's the experience. You're gonna, Men's Warehouse. You're gonna love the way you look, But even more than that, you're going to love the way you feel. You're going to love the way that what you just experienced. And if you do that right, you don't have to worry about just about anything else. If you take care of your employees and provide great customer service, game over.
Even the aesthetic of your store, all that. It's just like, it's awesome. Like, you toured me before while it was being built, and even now, like, not only you made a retail store and salon and spa, you made an event space.
Yeah.
Like, and that's...
Tonight's going to be awesome. You guys should come.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Can I quote Trump? I'm coming.
And I'll quote our current vice president, don't come.
I think it's
All right, what were you going to say, Brian? Oh, sorry.
I just like episode 9, we had a great guest on that used to tour with Michael Jackson and Prince. He was their I forget, he was like one of their like marketing managers.
Wait a second. I thought they were in conflict the whole time. Who's better, Prince or Michael Jackson?
Ooh,
Prince, without a doubt.
Probably Prince.
Prince 100%.
Prince is
Probably
pretty badass.
I would say.
All right, you got to get out of here. He's got to get out of here. I want to tell everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you. I'm happy. I'm happy we met you. Hopefully, if there is no global financial collapse, you'd come back and talk to us.
Be happy to.
I want a Success Fundamentals podcast on Facebook and Instagram, but you're also on Apple Podcasts, you on Spotify, all Acast, and
all.
Did you have a problem getting on Pandora? That one sucks getting on.
Oh, I don't know. We have people that do that for us.
Pandora's a pain in the ass.
Is it really?
Amazon.
Are you
Music
on
is a pain in the ass.
Pornhub?
No. XXNN. Or XNXX, whatever the hell it is.
What is wrong with you?
Me or Alex?
I know what's wrong with Alex.
Well, I mean, if you ever go look at the Greeks' architecture and art from back.
Look at the statue. I stare at that statue
Greek.
the whole
That's
time.
Greek.
Like, why?
You didn't notice that yet, Brian?
I did not notice that.
You didn't notice
statue.
until right now?
Yeah.
Can somebody describe what's happening here?
It's Greco-Roman hand job wrestling.
Oh my God.
He's like,
This
yo,
is really.
you're about to take me down. But
We don't do that at Judo, by
I got
the way,
your
in
weird
case you guys are
Well, then I'm
uncomfortable.
not going.
That's an illegal move. All right, Brian, I want to thank you so much. Everybody else, anybody
you,
have any
Brian.
questions? Everybody good? What a week.
what a week. What a week.
Week.